Hello, unstoppable real estate investors. I'm Rayana Starr, your host of the Unstoppable Real Estate Investor podcast. And we go live in my group, Unstoppable Real Estate Investor, and then we post these in 150 groups. I don't know, my VA Rose does that for me. But on Wednesdays, we meet at noon Eastern for our top 5% unstoppable real estate investor rock stars, superstars who are movers and shakers and really the inspiration in the industry. And then on Fridays, we meet with people like Mike here who are up and coming rock stars. And Mike's accomplished a lot in a very short period of time as a real estate investor. And so we're here to hear his story and hear where he's at in his real estate investing journey. And then I want to just let everybody know that I will not be doing the marketing and mindset Mondays on Monday evenings anymore with Rufus. He and I are both just too busy and we didn't feel like we had enough engagement or interest. So I try things. If I get engagement and interest and they seem to be things people are getting value of, I'll keep doing them. And if they don't, there's no sense in keep doing that. So, and then at the end of this month, starting in May, we will go down to just the Wednesday podcast every week at noon on Wednesdays. So Mike, welcome to the Unstoppable Real Estate Investor podcast. It's a pleasure to meet you. How'd you find out about me and the podcast? What was it that appealed to you that made you want to be a guest?
Yeah, that's a funny story because I must have been one of the people that came across one of your VA's marketing in random groups because I saw some marketing in my local market, and I was like, oh man, that'd be awesome to be on that podcast. And I really enjoy doing podcast interviews and that sort of thing. So I was just like, let's reach out and see if you happen to have an opening. So
right on. Okay, I'm glad you took us up on the invitation, and it's good to have you. And I have some clients in Michigan, but they're up like you're here. They're up here, so I should connect you. Anyway, so Mike, tell me, how old are you? First off,
I'm 30 years old.
So you're young, yeah. So tell me, prior to real estate, tell me a little bit about yourself before you got into real estate 4 years ago.
Yeah, so I was working in ministry full time. I was doing
college campuses. Okay.
Yeah. So I was doing that. I always had a desire to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know I would be in real estate, but entrepreneurship had been on my mind for a while. I think that what really kind of like me thinking about real estate in a way that I hadn't before. And I know this sounds so cliche on a real estate investor podcast, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
No, it doesn't sound cliche. Their cliches develop because of something real. But before we get into that, because a lot of people bring that up. I've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It is an inspiration for people learning how to get out of the grind of trading time for dollars. But tell me a little more about the full-time ministry on college campuses. How does that work? And is that a position you get paid for? And what exactly were you doing?
Yeah, so that was a full-time position. I was in that role for 5 years. And I was serving multiple college campuses. And essentially what I was doing, a lot of what I did just revolved around things like Bible study with students or doing other activities to get Christians together, get them to know one another, teach people how to pray, that sort of thing. And so, we would do all sorts of things from like, host a retreat to, this wasn't totally campus ministry as well, but I also spent a lot of time in the Flint area A lot of people might know it nationally for like the water crisis and stuff like that a few years ago. And I would do a lot of ministry in neighborhoods that were really hard hit, just economically. So yeah, I was kind of all over the place doing a lot of things.
I just was pulling the live up on my phone so I can see who's joining us. I wanted to say hi, Brad Pettis. And, just because I was offline for about a month with a streaming issue between Zoom and Facebook. My Facebook account got hacked, and then they penalized me even further for my account being hacked and wouldn't let me go live for a month. So that was frustrating. Anyway, I'm just hoping people start coming back. Well, wow. So that's quite a leap to go from ministry to real estate investing. So what was happening in your mind about that? Like you said, I was always thinking, I'd like to be an entrepreneur. What was that based on family, friends, or was it really like just you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all of a sudden you were like, oh, or was there like a sequence that led up to it?
Yeah, so I mean, my dad was an entrepreneur, owned a couple of businesses.
Okay.
He was actually a
It's in
farmer.
your blood. It's
Yeah,
in
yeah,
your DNA. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And so like it's a little bit difficult for me to like pinpoint a moment where I was like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, because like it was just kind of like part of the way I thought, and I just came to realize it as I grew older and
Yeah.
stuff.
It
Uh,
wasn't so much about when you thought about being an entrepreneur. It was just always there.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Got it.
absolutely. And so like I think what was transformational about Rich Dad Poor Dad was not the idea or the attraction to entrepreneurship itself, but like it got me thinking about real estate from the perspective of not just as an investment, but as a business.
And
Because
there is a big difference.
yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
big difference between, just the average, lay person, civilian who buys a house and then they upsell and, they keep rolling over and they buy a house here and there and they gold plate the rehab and they, then they, I had met a couple, or this past week, I was having lunch somewhere and this couple was sitting next to me and we get talking and they had bought a place in Asheville, a condo, and it was built in a new building and, they're waiting for it to be built and picked the best one on the corner at the top with the best view. And I said, oh, is that like a vacation home for you? And they're like, well, really, it's an investment. And I said, oh, it's an investment. So do you Airbnb or to rent it out? Oh, no, we don't want anyone in there. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then how's it an investment? Because they go in and go to it about once a month.
Yeah.
And they were Microsoft people. So they had money and all that. And so we got talking and I started educating them and talking to them about private money, and we'll see if they ever call me. But
Yeah.
it was like they thought they were real estate investors. And I thought, no, there's so much more you need to know.
No. Yeah. People like that need to talk to people like us.
Yes, exactly. So they got curious. We were talking about, private money and projects that I'm like passion projects of mine. And he asked for my card, and we'll see. I don't know if he'll ever call me or not. But hey, you just have to have those conversations. And I think that's one of the things I would say to a lot of people that are caught up in the workshop Willie or boot camp Betty mode where they're educate. There's that extreme too, where they say they're a real estate investor, but they're not investing in any real estate. They're just a workshop junkie. Is take action, do something, go get a property, wholesale something, do something, then you're a real estate investor.
Yep, absolutely.
So talk about your journey. Like, where did it start? You read the book. And where did you get started in your real estate investing career, Mike?
Yeah, so I went to like a weekend seminar, just heard about like some different strategies that I had never heard of, like wholesaling and things like that. And
Where
it
was the weekend seminar?
where
Yeah, who
uh,
was it with?
oh, it was actually Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh, you went to one of their seminars.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
great. Okay.
Yeah. So so anyway, after attending that, and again hearing more about like how real estate really could be more than just an investment and become a business, because like something I didn't mention yet was like in between that time, like even when I was working in ministry, actually even before I was working in ministry, I was investing pretty actively in the stock market. I'm not talking like mutual funds. I'm talking like some more advanced strategies and stuff like that. And I had some success with it, and that was actually part of what like piqued my interest even more in real estate, because ultimately I realized in the stock market that like you needed to already have some money to like, even if you get great
Yeah.
returns on $1,000, it's not going to be,
Yeah, there's
life
no
changing.
private money lender loaning you money to invest in the stock market.
Yeah. There, and so anyway, like I just really appreciated real estate's unique ability for being able to leverage in a safer, more stable sort of way, and also the ability to create a business out of it. Obviously, there are some people that create a business out of stock investing and stuff like that, but that's more of the exception. Whereas
Right.
it's like real estate, you either need to create a business, like what we do, or you need to invest with somebody like us. And I mean, those are really the primary ways. One way or another, if you're owning real estate directly yourself, then you're in business. And so that was really attractive to me.
Yeah, and the fact also, I mean, you were successful in the stock market, but there's so many variables with that you can't control. Yes, you can be very analytical and learn how to invest by, with technical charts and reading the patterns and predicting. But and even though when you are investing in the stock market, there ultimately are commodities and tangible assets that are backed by those stocks, but not really, because it's not like you're buying that commodity or tangible asset. You're not.
Yeah.
So your stock isn't backed by a real asset like real estate is.
And that's the conversation I often have with potential investors, is just like real estate is inherently lower risk, lower volatility. It provides something more stable. And so it's like, people have this idea of like the average stock market returns, which are, frankly quite bogus. Like, from somebody that's done a lot in that world, a lot of it's bogus. I'll just say that. And so really what most people are looking for is a stable, steady, good return where they can grow it. Like, just consider if you can get a steady return where you're not suddenly going to lose 20% in a year, like in 2022, for many investors, like that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I think, and different people have different risk tolerance.
Yeah.
And what's nice about real estate, and you've been around for about 4 years, so I don't know how experienced you are with this, but there's so many different terms and so many different exit strategies and so many different niches that you can make money in. I mean, arbitraging, Airbnb, you don't even have to own any assets to leverage someone else's assets and manage them to make a really nice income. Now, that is not passive income. There's There's a lot of people that love the wholesaling and the rehabbing, but and you can automate it, and it can become passive if you develop technology and a team that does all that for you. So in that sense, it is passive, but truly passive is when an asset or your money's making money for you. So talk a little about the details of your journey. Like, what was your first investment?
So the first property that I bought, it was a flip. And it went super smoothly.
That's really rare. You know that, right?
Well, you haven't heard about my follow-up investment to that, and you'll
okay. All right. So tell us your story.
It went so smoothly. So this first investment, just very briefly, from the time I closed on it to buy it to the sale of it was 89 days. It was like I believe it was a $55,000 rehab. It was just probably right around median for that area. It wasn't like crazy money that I made. I think I made about 30,000 on that, split with a partner. So it wasn't, not crazy, but it was awesome. It was
90 days, not such a bad turn, right?
So yeah, I was happy with it. It went super smoothly, and I didn't really appreciate how how rare that is, especially on a first deal. And then that first deal led me into my second deal, and the second deal was kind of like the nightmare deal that you that you hear about on podcasts like this. Usually,
a nightmare.
So on this house, it was originally 600 square feet, 2-bed, 1-bath, and I converted it to 1,200 square feet, 3-bed, 2-bath. So I did a major addition on this house.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker, and this is what even the builders and engineers and stuff can't believe, including the basement.
You added a basement?
We added on to an existing basement. Yeah.
I've never heard that done before. No wonder. What were you looking for, a challenging project? No wonder. You guys had to move some major dirt and really mess with the foundation a bit. Wow.
So it was a headache project, and needless to say, I learned a lot in that project.
Why did you add more basement?
In part because
doubling the footprint, and you wanted basement under the whole house.
Yeah, there was definitely a value add opportunity there. And so we were going after it. I obviously didn't realize the extent of how difficult that would make it. Obviously, an addition in itself is hard enough. But adding a basement is kind of crazy.
Wow.
Anyway, I learned a lot through that process. I learned a lot about building and stuff like that. So it was a good.
How long did that project take, and did you get out of it alive and whole and make some money on it?
So yes, I did make some money. Not as much as I could or should have. But let's see, it took 14 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean,
a project that wouldn't end.
Yeah. If anyone watching this has flipped a house, like 6 months, you're like, ready to gouge your eyes out. But, but when it drags on, but I will say, in hindsight, we ended up losing like 3 months on our timeline just due to rain. We had the rainiest summer on record that year.
Yeah, what a bummer for Michigan, because you guys can't really even do anything in the winter.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Time there too. What a bummer.
So it was kind of wild figuring out all of those details.
Right.
Yeah, we were like at the very beginning of it, we were trying to get footings poured on the basement before the frost came and all this stuff. It was nightmare. And then to add to all of this, I started off with the wrong contractor.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah. Yep.
that's always gonna screw things up, isn't it?
I learned how important that is. I mean, I knew a good contractor was important, but seriously, like starting with the wrong contractor on a big project, like once you get into it, this guy,
Nightmare.
I fired him fairly quickly, fortunately. But it wasn't quick enough. Because there was just things that he did wrong because of the extent of this work. Like we literally removed the whole floor. Like you could see from the basement outside directly out the front door and stuff like that. And so just to give you an idea of the level of structural work there, and because he did some things wrong in the beginning of it, he ended up costing me at least $30,000 that could have been on this. Now, I did end up walking away with a profit, but it should have been at least $30,000 more, even given the extent of all of this and everything like that. So, yeah, and again, this is hindsight. I was looking back at it and I was talking to an experienced builder that I know now. And he was like, really, if you knew exactly what you were doing and you had been doing this for 20 years, he was like, you really couldn't have done it in less than probably 11 months. I think he said, he might have said 10 months, something like that. So I was like, you know, not bad for my first time.
And then you take 3 months out for rain and you're like, oh, okay, so it really wasn't that bad. Right.
But it didn't feel like that in the moment.
Right.
To say, it was definitely a nightmare project.
Yeah.
But one of the benefits of that project was that coming out the other side, I was like, wow, this is like literally the worst thing that I could have imagined.
I survived it, and I even made some money. Oh, okay. And it doesn't it just dissolve fear about doing projects after that?
Yeah. And so immediately I was like, if I can handle this, I'm like,
I'm bulletproof.
I have builders with 20 plus years of experience that were like, it literally doesn't get worse than that. And I was like, okay, game on. And I was like,
I can do this. Right. Right. Good
and
for you.
So it was like literally a month later, I had 4 under construction at the same time. And then it was like a month or 2 later, I had, let's see, probably 5. And then a month or so after that, I picked up 3 more. So like we were starting to really like rock and roll.
Or were you wholesaling it all?
They were all rehabs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, you bounced back quickly and just went for it. And how did you do with all those?
Yeah.
So you ended up with what, 12 more?
No, let's see. I think probably 11 altogether. It's kind of hard to keep count.
I'm still going simultaneously. That's a lot of contractors and crews that you had going.
Yeah.
And how did those all pan out?
A lot better because of that previous project. The only way I was able to get that previous project done was because I found the right contractors and the right people to work with. And then that was just like game changer.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, once we started doing that, it was like after doing that project, I went out and like I started raising capital like crazy. I brought on a
go about doing.
What was that?
How'd you go about raising capital?
Oh, so that was primarily through social media. Well, I'll say social media and just talking about what I do. What I was doing, I was just going live on Facebook every day, like literally every day, telling people what I'm doing. Hey, I'm at a project. By the way, we're looking for more investors. We have more projects coming up. Like literally that simple most of the time. And when I was out and about, like just anyone I talked to, I'd just tell them what I was doing, which I had resisted for a long time. But I wasn't even asking them to invest. the vast majority of, I can't even say for sure I can think of anyone I've ever asked to invest with me. They typically ask me more often than not.
That's fat. I love that is such a great point that you're making, Mike, because I've coached people where that is what stops them from going forward. And I said, that shouldn't stop you, because if you buy a house retail, you go look for the house. Yeah, maybe you got pre-qualified for a loan or even pre-approved, but the thing you're going to buy comes first, and then the funding aligns with whatever that project is, and it's shifting people's mindsets. But it's fascinating. I have found that to be the same case for me is, when you're passionate about what you're doing and you're just sharing with people what you do, they are inspired by that and they come to you. That's how I've raised money before too, is like even recently with the projects that I'm in really involved in and wanting to do, I've just shared it with people, and friends have come to me and said, oh, I'd like, could I, invest in that? And it's just, wow, this is so easy.
That's usually how it happens is, could I? Would you have room for me to?
Yeah, like they'd be lucky to be involved, and yet you have these inexperienced.
And here's the thing, though, they are lucky to be involved, because how many people know somebody?
Yeah,
I mean, and not only that,
Mike,
like,
everyone needs to hear
money every day. There's more dollars than there are deals. So
absolutely, everyone. Listen to him. He's 30 years old. He's, he bounced back from like a hell project, and then went gangbusters and just boom, boom, boom project, and had like 11 projects going at once. He knew he had to get good at private money, and all he did was start talking about what he was doing. He didn't even go and ask anyone directly for money, and raised $2 million to cover his project. So it is just getting out there and not being shy, but being passionate about what you're doing. And people will come to you, literally come to you and say, could I be involved?
Yeah.
I love this, Mike. Love
and
it.
Here's the other thing that I've learned too, just recently, in like scaling all of this up so quickly, is like, if you're worried about what you're saying or posting, or it means you're not posting enough. Like, it's as simple as that. I'll hear people say stuff like, oh, should I say this or that when I post, or should I not say this? I'm like, you're not posting enough. You're not telling enough people.
All right, so explain yourself.
It's like, I would say quantity covers a multitude of sins. So like,
also practice it to master it. Like when you just do something and you have the humility and willingness to do it badly, to not be perfect, and done is better than perfect, and you just get out there. Because I wasn't a big fan about being in front of the camera either, or videos, and here I am hosting a podcast because I didn't want it to be about me. It wasn't shyness on my part. I'm just like, I don't want the focus to be on me. I want it to be on my clients. But then it was a partner that was working with me and said, no, you are the brand. And that's how you're going to attract people who are going to want to work with you, is they get a sense of who you are. And I really feel video is the best way, because they can see you. They get a sense of your personality. Yeah, it's great to write stuff too and post photos, but video, people get a sense of your energy, your personality. Like, do they resonate with you or not? And so I absolutely agree. And when you just get out there and you're not perfect, and you don't have your makeup on, or you're not dressed perfect, or you're just going for a walk with your dog and you're inspired, that's real. People can relate to that. People can relate to you when you're real. It doesn't have to be, contrived or perfect, or what's the word I'm looking for when they get you ready on a set? It doesn't have to be all choreographed. Yeah, staged. There it is.
Yeah.
So you get through all you do the project, you smooth sailing on the first project from hell, you bit off more than you could chew, still came out making money on it. And then you just didn't let that stop. You dove into multiple projects at a time, did well on those, having multiple projects going at a time. Talked about raising money. What would you say has been your biggest challenge? Like, get specific, like that project with that you bit off more than you could chew. What was the biggest challenge about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenge was mindset, like all along the way. And I don't mean that in a generic sense. Like, I think for me personally, I had a mindset like I was afraid of going fast. And like I see this in different ways with a lot of people. What it looked like for me was like, you know, I would get a deal or I'd get something under contract and I'd like go after it until it kind of fizzled out. And then I'd go after another one. And it's like, no, you need to do like 5 of those at one time. See which ones fall through. Maybe you'll get one, and just, you need to be going after a lot all at once. More than you think you can ever do.
Yeah, because deals don't always work out. They fall through. Yeah.
Like, just like in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
what was that?
Prevents you from getting too attached to a deal too.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, otherwise your time just gets wasted over and over. Like, it'll take you so long to get a deal just because you're fighting really hard over one deal. And it, like you said,
not mastering processes and systems to automate and delegate and scale. Yeah.
And so like, that was my mindset before I went into that flip from hell, as you put it. But then as I was coming out, also in the midst of this, I don't know if I already said, I think I made about $10,000 on that flip. That took 14 months.
No, you hadn't said, but hey, at least you came out whole. You know, you didn't lose $10,000 anymore, right? Yeah.
I know I was
made 40 had it not been for that contractor.
Absolutely. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the thing that gets me, is that it could have been 40. So that it was still a $30,000, you know, lesson at minimum.
Yeah, and here it is, you're getting to tell the story and show people that you still got your arms, your legs, you're still whole, you're alive and well and thriving, that you made it through that. And I think a lot of people let the fear of failure stop them, and they don't get that every real estate investor at some point is going to lose a little money on a deal, or it's not going to go through, or whatever. I mean, me and my partner were under contract for a property we were going to develop into a small little micro community of tiny houses, and we couldn't get the funding because the property was so unique. We couldn't get the comps and appraisals. And in North Carolina, you know, we didn't lose a lot of money, but in North Carolina, you have a due diligence, it's non-refundable. So there's a couple $1,000. Then we had a guy coming in, a designer, to do some pre-work for going to a zoning board and getting, so there was another $775. So, you know, we were out $2,250 or something, but 200, not 22, you know, $2,250 or $75. Yeah, you don't want to keep doing that everywhere, but we learned a lot, and it didn't discourage us. If anything, it just encouraged us more. And what we got is, oh, for us to do what we want to do, it's got to be all private money, because hard money, you have to jump through too many hoops. They've got to have their appraisers and all that. So tell us a little more about, like, what else do you want to share that we haven't covered yet?
I mean, I think the name of the game, especially if you're not seeing the traction that you want right now, is you just got to do more than you think you can do.
Volume.
And you've got to do it faster than you think you can do.
Volume and velocity. You can steal that. That's your like little volume and velocity, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so, like, you know, in that journey, like, I'll just say after that project from hell, it wasn't smooth sailing from there. It was just maybe a slightly cooler part of hell at times. Because
you had a recovery period where you had to go lick your wounds.
Well, and I had so much going on all at once that it was a different sort of growing pains at that point.
Right.
Like I had to push myself to my limit, see what breaks down, and then rebuild. And so now I'm on kind of like the later end of that rebuilding from breaking down.
Right.
Ultimately, like if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have realized what needs to be fixed for me to scale to the next level. And so it's just huge. You have to go faster than you're comfortable with.
Well, what I'm also hearing is you're willing to expand your capacities, expand your comfort zone, get out on the edge. Pace Morby, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he talks about create chaos and break shit. And it's like, get out there and, fall down and stumble around and make mistakes. And because you're going to learn from that, you'll survive. And I think that fear, and a lot of my coaching is on that. It's helping people overcome fear to take action and not letting failure stop them. You are going to fail.
Well, and here's the other thing too, is that there's one level of fear where it's like the fear to take the first step, but then it's like, you have to be continuously uncomfortable before
you have to keep,
I'll just say I had a knot in my stomach for 14 months plus.
Wow.
And you know what? Like, honestly, it's still going on, just in different ways, because now I'm pushing the boundaries in other ways now.
Sure.
And so, like, you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's like I heard somebody say one time, there's no growth in your comfort zone, and there's definitely no comfort in your growth zone.
I like that.
Like, you have to get used to being outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And it will expand, and you'll kind of settle into it. And then you have to realize, like, okay, well, now's the time to expand again. And then that's just how you grow.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Mike, what is, like, if you were to jump up on a rooftop and you had a captive audience and you could share with them, one pearl of wisdom that they would really take to heart, what would that be based on your experience?
Yeah, I would say only work with the best people. Notice I didn't say good people. I said only work with the best people. That's something that I learned in a really hard way on that project from hell. Only work with the best people. And part of how you do that is you have to get outside of the mindset of choosing people solely based on price. And I am talking contractors, that's for sure. But I'm not just talking contractors. If you're a wholesaler, I'm talking like your cash buyers. Like, oftentimes the best people I know, they're not usually the best flippers aren't the ones that pay the most. They might be the second or something like that. But you really want to be wary of who you're working with. And I'll relate this to, again, a lesson that I learned when I was more active in the stock market side of things. I was like investing in, wondering why, I was investing in these companies that were supposed to be good. I won't mention any names except for Facebook, Google, and the like. And I was like, man, why am I not making the money that I should be? Like, it seemed like I either bought and sold at just the wrong times, or, whatever. For whatever reason, it seemed like it should have been a great investment. It seemed like it turned out well for others, but I just wasn't making the money that I should have. And one thing I realized was, like, those investments, part of why they didn't perform well was because they didn't align with me and what I believed in and wanted to invest in. And, ultimately it's like, it doesn't matter if you have a property, like, I saw this so many times on market in the last couple of years where somebody was trying to sell their house, like a motivated seller, whether on market or off. And somebody would come in with this, like, 40,000 over asking, and it was, maybe a hedge fund or whatever. You saw all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And people would go for these outrageous prices. But it's like, it's more than that. It's who you work with. Because the best people, you got to find the best people, the people that you enjoy working with. And how I classify that is humble, hungry, and smart. I need all three, or I'm not interested in working with you. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, I call them hungry hunters.
What was that?
I call them hungry hunters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
So that's my advice.
Well, you're quite an impressive young man, and with a lot of wisdom for such a young age. And it's just been a joy to have you as a guest, and love that you're in my community, and just, you're such an inspiration, Mike. And I just appreciate you taking the time to be a guest on my podcast. You're delightful. I love your energy. I love your mindset. And I agree, volume and velocity, and living on the edge of your comfort zone and always being uncomfortable and being more in your growth zone. The edge of your comfort zone is where you get into your growth zone. Yeah. And that you are always going to be facing fear if you're in a growth mindset. When you're comfortable and feeling safe, you're in your comfort zone. I love that. Yeah, so now what's your future? What are your goals for the future? What's your ultimate goal?
Well, my ultimate goal, I would say the big thing right now, my main focus is really scaling up my house flipping business. I would like to take that up to the next level. Ideally like 30, 40 houses a year, somewhere around there, a little bit more, I don't want to say passive, but not as hands-on as what things are right now. So that's the big thing. And then from there, probably moving into other businesses, probably real estate related businesses.
What about
maybe buying businesses?
What's that?
I said maybe buying supported, like, related businesses. So,
what about passive income? Are you acquiring any rental properties along the way and building a portfolio?
Yeah, not at this immediate moment, just because the houses that I've been seeing didn't make sense as far as long-term holds, but have been working out nicely as far as, short-term flips. But that will be along the way. I kind of consider that in with like the house flipping business is just like, to me, it's like, it's all house flipping. It's just a matter of exit. Yeah. So sometimes, it's a flip, but it's a longer term exit. And so, yes, it will be long-term, short-term, lease option exit, like all those sorts of things for sure.
Okay. Good for you. And when you think of investing in other businesses that are real estate and real estate related, what are you thinking?
Well, one thing has been possibly like some different contractor businesses, like I'm talking mechanical contractors, electricians, buying those sorts of related businesses, ultimately allowing us to scale the house flipping side of things even more.
So buying contractor businesses that are working under your roof so that you have a whole team of all GC and subcontractors that work solely for you.
Yep. Yeah. So that's the ultimate goal as far as like the house flipping side of things, just because I see that as necessary in order to like really scale things, even potentially beyond that 30 to 40 house mark. I do also have plans in the future for doing like a hard money business, stuff like that, kind of like scaling up the capital that I'm already raising to do some bigger things like that. So
All right, good for you. I love it. Well, I have no doubt you'll be successful because you've got the right mindset. You're an action taker, you're fearless, and you're willing to just go for it. So good for you. It's been a pleasure meeting you, Mike. Keep going.
it's been great joining you.
So everybody take action, no excuses, just results. Don't let fear stop you. It's volume and velocity, and going forward with fear in your belly. When you stretch outside of your comfort zone, that is the edge of your growth zone. And so be willing to always be a little uncomfortable, and that's where your growth is and your success. So Mike's 30. You can, if he can do this, you can. So if you haven't done a deal yet, or you're not someone who's doing a lot of volume, then really I encourage you to save this video and watch it regularly for inspiration. Thank you so much, Mike. You've been just such a joy to be on this podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We'll
Bye,
see ya.
everybody.